Welcome to Selling in the Age of AI.
Yeah, this is good stuff. So,
Must-listen podcast for sales professionals who lean into technology without leaning on it. Dive into the future of sales with your hosts, the dynamic and inspiring Frank Somma, renowned keynote speaker, best-selling author, seminar leader, and business coach. Get ready for game-changing insights and strategies that value technology but place humanity at the top of the sales pyramid.
So my first guest in the inaugural podcast is Mike Largis, and I couldn't be more thrilled. Mike started his insurance career as a producer for Charles Bender Insurance Agency, located in his hometown of Reese, Michigan. After returning from duty in the United States Navy, where he was a part of the River Patrol Force during the Vietnam War, and during his early years in the insurance business, he supplemented his income by playing the drums in various bands. I love that. Mike joined Emma Romel Agency back in 1984. Took over the management of their Vassar branch. And in 1986, a flood hit Vassar, and I love this story. Mike organized a fundraising effort and helped distribute over $70,000 to the residents who were decimated by the flood. And I want to put a pin in that because I want to talk about volunteerism at some point while we're talking today. Mike later served the Rummel Agency as the COO, corporate secretary for the firm, and then in their 4 locations, retired in 2012, but came back as needed, was the chairman of the board, coached a lot of young producers, and helped the business tremendously. Mike served in the Michigan Association of Insurance Agencies legislative area for many years, and then as president from 2000 to 2001. He's a past Michigan Agent of the Year, award recipient by the Michigan Association of Insurance Agents, Chairperson of the Year on 2 separate occasions, and also a recipient of the Capital Award for his work furthering the legislative goals of the Michigan Association of Independent Insurance Agencies. He was also given a Lifetime Achievement Award for his leadership and service to the insurance industry, and I could read another full page of accolades and awards for Mike that he earned during his career, but we are trying to keep the podcast within like 8 hours. So I think I'm going to abandon the award part now and just come to the man and say, welcome, Mike. I can't thank you enough for being guest numero uno. This is fabulous.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. All those awards indicate one thing: I can sit in more meetings than anyone else on the That's really what they're for. You realize that.
Oh, that's great. So, the thrust of our podcast is about the importance of being charismatic, being persuasive, having people skills, understanding empathy, understanding what great conversations are and how to lead with help as a professional salesperson. The reason that we began the podcast is because I see so many salespeople that are leaning on the technology rather than leading into it. So to be clear, I'm not asking folks to take out an inkwell and a quill pen to write their orders. I love the tech. I do. I love the technology. I use the technology. I use AI. What I'd like to do in this podcast is explore how we can separate ourselves in this age of AI. How do we not become relegated to the bottom of the heap in the point and click culture where we're only competing on price? And I'm curious what your overarching feelings are about that.
I think there's a real use for AI. When I design sales classes here in the agency, the one thing that I try to drive home is that before you can sell anything, you got to sell yourself. You have to come across as likable and trustworthy. I think AI has a real what's the word I'm looking for? The chance of it being really helpful in prospecting, in finding out in our industry. We can only talk about insurance and prospecting. You can find out about the class of business that you're going to. You can find out a lot by asking these questions. But from what I can see, AI is totally one-sided. And it blurs the divisions of knowledge and wisdom. In other words, it's one-sided, meaning somebody's got to know what to ask.
Right.
So will the client go directly to AI someday to get their insurance needs? How do they know what to ask?
Right.
Or will they just regurgitate what's on their current deck page? Well, maybe that's not the right information. So that's where I see it's hard for AI to take over that person to person gaining trust and the actual helping and selling of a product, especially our industry where you're selling a promise. But my approach has always been, and the way I've taught our producers, is let the client design that product. Now they don't know what to ask for, but you know how to ask questions of them and watch the reaction. AI can't watch. Gee, your eyebrows went together. Did you really understand what I just said? You look like you got some questions, or did I do a good enough job explaining that? All of those open-ended kind of things to engage the client.
Mike,
AI is just going to respond.
I have to jump in on that particular thing because, my background is in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, where we are taught to look for the eyebrows coming together. Like we
Oh,
practice
yeah.
that. Now, this is something that I've always admired in speaking with you live, and we've been in each other's company enough times for me to be able to watch as you speak to people. You just do that. So you have that in you. And I wonder how much of that you can teach when you work with your producers. How do you teach them to be observant? How do you teach them to ask more questions? Like to put that clock on and say, hey, if you're with a prospect for an hour and I have a timer on, I'm hoping the prospect is talking for 40 minutes and you for 20. Like, how do you teach those kinds of things and even the nuances of what the person's feeling, thinking, prompting them, that
Right.
whole set?
Um, I have a program called The Art of Listening, and we cover a lot of that along with an assertiveness training program. Now, uh, I'd like to take credit for all of that research, but I just stole it.
Good, good.
Primarily it came from for 12 to 15 years at our local congregation. I taught a ministry called Stephen Ministry. And
Okay.
Stephen Ministry is just a caring ministry, and it takes some of the tools of psychology
Hmm.
and applies them to caring for people in crisis. And I learned so much that can be reapplied to the selling process
Okay.
and the caring for the client process. So I just kind of morphed those into uh, sales classes here. And the art of listening is indeed so many different techniques. You listen more with your eyes than you do with your ears. You have to watch for the responses. You have to ask a question. How many times have you ever been, Frank, with anyone and they're just rattling off different things and they never stop long enough for you to respond?
It's like
Ah,
I would be wealthy if I had $1 for every time that's happened. And in the positions that we're in, Mike, both of us doing this mentoring on listening and teaching on listening, I think we're more acutely aware of those moments when they happen,
oh, sure.
right? Because we're
Yeah.
looking for them and we're paying attention to that. And what I'd like to get across to professional salespeople, I mean, you've had a fabulous career and, it led with sales. You, of course, were the chairman of the board of your company, but you led with selling in the beginning. And that's how you got to where you got to is these fabulous skills with people along with other, or so many other things you learned about management, I'm sure. What I want to be able for us to be able to help folks that are in business now with is you compete with point and click today, right?
Absolutely.
Romel Agency is a fabulous insurance, the best damn agency in Michigan. And you're competing with people who think they can go online and point and click. How do you help producers to compete with that kind of mentality and to be personal in a world that's mostly tech?
Well, I think one thing that producers need to know, service agents in our line of business as well, is that the point and click mentality is because the client, the insured in our business, primarily knows one thing about insurance. What's the cost?
Right.
I had a one of our producers that I'm still mentoring on a semi-regular basis, and he talked about a prospect that he went in on. He called up on a commercial, and they said, "We're really happy with what we got, so don't bother." And he answered, "Fine." He says, "If we can ever help you in the future, let us know." The usual, put your tail between your legs and run out. And I asked him, I said, "Well, why didn't you say something like, 'That's really great. What are you really happy with? The protection that the contract gives or the price?'"
Right.
Because people don't know the protections.
Right.
So, and that, in order to get that out of them, how can you do that? My favorite line that I've used over the years when you're with a prospect is to just say, "Look, in the classes that I teach, the number one rule is we don't sell apples.
Right.
You want apples, apples quote. I don't know if you got good apples or bad apples, but we'll look at everything for you. But let's sit down and talk. What do you want to see happen?"
Right.
The point and click never asks that. The point and click just gives you what you have.
Right.
Are you sure that that's right? Isn't it worth a little bit of time to spend talking about what you have? And if you have, what you have is really good, we're going to let you know. But
Right.
we're also going to show you options because you're spending your money for a product. Don't you want that product to perform and do what you want it to do? So when you just go through that line of questioning, what do you want to see happen?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you want that? We can do that. And how about we can do that? Do you want that building totally replaced, or do you just want? No, I want to replace. We can do that. Do you want this covered, that covered? We can do that. And then when you get done, you can walk back with a proposal and say, for everything you wanted, this is the best value that we came up with out of the companies we're contracted with.
Mm-hmm.
To a large degree, it takes the price out of the issue because they designed their coverage.
Absolutely. And it's the consequences. I think insurance separates, and I'm sure there are other businesses that have this same thing, but the idea of how nuanced it can be, right? I can go on the point and click thing and it can give me a string of choices.
Oh,
Do I
sure.
want this, and this? But do I really understand those choices the way that the professional person like yourself that's been in the business forever and who has seen calamity, who
Yeah.
has seen somebody who made a choice that they thought was good and then maybe it wasn't so good. And as your colleague Larry taught me, and I quote this all the time, in the insurance business, who are you going to call on your worst day? And this is, I think, what we're bringing to the table as professionals today. I want salespeople to use the tech, whatever business you're in. I want you to use your CRM like it's on, like it's on fire, like it matters more than anything in the world, and just pack data rules. Just make sure your CRM has the data. Make sure you're getting educated. Make sure you're using a Calendly application. Make sure you have all of the things that the technology can offer you, including using ChatGPT where you have to. And like you said before, maybe it's about qualifying and finding the right prospects. Use all that stuff, but understand that if you only use that and you don't develop the skills, Mike, that you and I are talking about, you will be relegated to the bottom of the heap, competing only on price because
Only
that
on
will be
price.
your only differentiator.
And if you're competing on price, you're walking in there to sell. Uh, I want, and I know it's hard when you're on commission. I mean, I lived my life on commission,
Mm-hmm.
but I counsel the folks, if you're going in there with the back of your mind, the only reason I'm here is to sell a product, to sell a policy. You're setting up a roadblock in front of you like crazy because you're not going to take the time to listen, and people are going to catch up on that attitude. If you're going in there to help the person, chances are much better that if you're doing a good job of helping them, A, it's going to endear them and you're going to gain trust. Again, you can't sell anything until you sell yourself.
Right.
And B, it should result in a sale, irregardless of within reasons, irregardless of the pricing.
Mm-hmm.
I have sold more in the agricultural field, large corporate farms. I would venture to guess that 3/4 of the sales that I made, I wound up being more premium than what the competition was that I was going up against. But we took the time to let them, they saw what they didn't have and saw what they could have and decided the extra premium is worth that extra protection. But if I was going in there just to sell it, I looked at that price and just copied what was there. Well, that's not helping anyone.
And that I can do point and click. I don't need you.
Absolutely.
I don't need you for
Absolutely.
that. And that's, you see, that's the thing, that if you're going to earn your money as a professional salesperson, what are you bringing to the process? You know, you're not bringing information. Google's trumped you on that. You know, AI's trumped you on that. You're bringing nuance. You're bringing your understanding of the business. As I said, in insurance, I think it's more important than anything, the responsibility that the agent has to make sure that that person is taken care of, because it's not like another product. If you're selling, you know, office automate, you're selling VoIP systems or whatever, you know, if it's not good, people can say, rip it out, give me a new one.
Yeah.
You sell the wrong insurance and my house burns down, I can't return it. It's over. You
It's
know,
over.
I don't have replacement costs. I'm screwed. So it's super important. I think the responsibility in your business more than others is huge. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you mentioned before about living a commission life. So this is a struggle for folks, right? If I earn my money on commission, I have to go out and sell. How do I come across? How do I make myself intentionally think about the client and their needs as opposed to my own pocketbook? How do you struggle that balance in your head?
You know, that's tough.
Yeah.
But it's, to me, it's a simple phrase: know your role, stay within your role.
Okay.
Your role is to care for that person. And that's what we try to emphasize. Your role is to do what's right for that client.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good human to human relationship. And that's your role. If you do it well, and I apologize for the ringing, I'm getting calendar things popping up here.
It's okay.
If you're doing it well and showing care
Yeah.
and concern and doing all of the listening skills and asking the right questions, that should result in a sale.
Right.
Now, if you're in there just to make a sale, you know, in our business, you want to build a book. If you focus on premium only, every renewal, you're going to have to try to resell that thing or lose it, and your retention's going to suck.
Right.
If you want to build a book on trust and a relationship, you don't need to worry so much about the renewal premiums. And oh, believe me, with everything that's going on in this country today and the insurance payouts that are happening,
Sure.
it's going to drive cost of products up. It's going to drive cost of claims up. The cost of reinsurance is going to go up. We're going to look at really some high rate increases, I believe, within the next 2 to
There's
3
no doubt. And, you know, there's two other places I want to remember to go to with you. So one is rates are going to go way up, and most folks would look at that as, okay, now I'm in a price war. So let's put a pin in that for a second. And I want to address what you were saying before about reaching out to help the client and building a book of business. And my answer to desperation, right, to needing commission has always been, you got to outwork it. You know, if I need to bring in 4 new clients every month, whatever business I'm in, let's say I have to bring in 4 new clients a month. If I have 24 in my reasonably hot prospect list, I can now listen, ask questions, take my time and care for you. If I've got 6 and I have to close 4 of them,
Panic.
And people smell desperation like a dog smells fear.
You're exactly
They
right.
know it.
That's
They don't
right.
even know why they know it.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
sense it, and you become that crazy avatar that the media has, created for professional salespeople of this greedy, slimy, glad handing, not listening
Yeah.
well for myself, which is nonsense. The best of us, Mike, do what you just described. They're there to help. So I would advise anybody that's struggling in that moment of, gee, I need to make this sale because I got to make commission because I've only got, get more things working. Just outwork it. No matter, regardless of your level of expertise, experience, or skill, you can outwork and outhustle anybody they put next to you
Yeah.
and be better than them just by outworking them. And then eventually the experience and talent will catch up with you.
And sales breeds sales.
Yes.
Have you found that? You know,
Yes.
the more I wrote, the more opportunities I had.
Right.
It was strange. I don't know why. I mean, you're always asking for referrals, but
It's
wow, the more
confidence.
doors got opened, and some of it, of course, is with the experience you gain by closing. Uh, I,
I
I,
think it's
I designed
confidence.
a class here of moving prospect to customer and the four phases of that.
Yeah.
But wow, that really grows. But you know, in our industry, um, I'm going to jump into this where I was on a panel one time, and the question came from the crowd of when's the right time to hire a new producer? And I said, well, tell me, why do you think you need one? Well, there's so much business to be had, and we're overworked, and we're this and that. And I said, I don't believe you're ready to hire a new producer. Well, why? We need more. I said, because you never mentioned, do you have a training program? Do you
Mhm.
have a marketing program so that that producer will feel success? Here's what we're going to give you. A marketing program gives you a list of prospects already qualified. And then the monitoring of it. Are you willing to do the monitoring and saying, if they already got the list, a weekly meeting of who did you see? What did you say? How did it go?
Yeah, sure.
But if you just say, well, we got to hire somebody, we're going to teach them insurance, and then they're on their own. I lived that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Then they're going
classic.
to get desperate. And if you don't pay a high enough base salary to start, they're going to start writing junk to live on.
Oh, well, that's where the Pareto rule comes in, right? That 80-20 thing. And you start
Yeah.
losing 80% of the people that were hired because we didn't take the care in the initial hiring. It's interesting. I think the reason when you were saying sales creates more sales, that confidence, my first, when I was a little baby sales guy back in the late 80s, 78, 80? Yeah, no, back in the early 80s, rather. When I first got out of the Navy, I had this guy, Leo, that was my sales manager. He's a great guy from Argentina and a terrific salesperson, a charismatic guy. People loved him, and I loved him. And he would say to me, Somma, best time to cold call? As soon as you make a sale, start knocking on doors. And and he was right. You felt that confidence. It's like momentum. And when you watch a sports event, right? You there's that undefinable thing called momentum. One team has it, the other team hasn't. And you watch just things happening, and it's almost inexplicable, but it's human nature. You get a feeling and you work better with that feeling. Opposite side of that is what we were talking about before, the desperation. And people, you repel. You are repelled by people when you are desperate. And I think that's a number one important thing to do. I want to go back to Mike. We were talking about price increases. And right now,
Mhm.
you were saying, I mean, I don't recall the numbers, but a few years ago, the catastrophic losses in the insurance business went up like from, X million to 4 billion over 1 year or something like this. It was incredible. So what's interesting is there are insurance people that will say, well, I don't know what to do. Price increases are going like crazy. My customers are all going to be mad. They're going to leave. How am I going to write any business? How am I going to get renewals with all these increases? And that's one tact to take. And another tact to take is if premium is going up in the insurance business, everybody else's customers are going to be looking for a better place to
Right.
land. And isn't this a fabulous opportunity?
Yep, exactly. Uh, and for gosh sakes, as independent trusted choice agents, especially when you got 7 or 8 companies or however many you got that you're contracted with. Now, I'm not in favor of bouncing people every 6 months or every year because you got to look at the long haul.
Hmm.
But quit hiding your head. Let's
Right.
be open and honest with the clients. Hey, we got a lot of losses. Explain how reinsurance works, why companies are going to be raising their rates. The
Sure.
cost of claims are going to go up. Each claim is going to cost more. It already has. The liability side is, the social inflation that is a
Hmm.
real thing.
Hmm.
Let's start explaining that. I've used this phrase a number of times, Frank, to clients and prospects. I can save you money at 2 different times, before the claim or after the claim.
Uh,
Now, if I can tell you right now, I can beat your premium. Now, if something happens, you probably won't have any protection.
yeah.
Most people are attracted to before the claim because they think they're never going to have one. But believe me, a lot of people are way happier when the money is saved after the claim
Yeah.
happens. So it's a matter of being honest and upfront. Look, as an agent, as a producer, you don't set the rates.
Right.
You don't need to apologize for something that you have no control over. What you have control over, and it's a lot of extra work in markets like this because you're constantly taking a look at should this client be better off with a different carrier? Shouldn't they? And a lot more contact. But
Right.
the plus is the contact.
Yeah.
In our world with 10,000 personal lines clients, the ones most at risk are the ones that never have a claim and pay their bills all the time because we never touch them
Sure.
and they lose that relationship.
Well, I mean, that's a really important point, Mike, and that is in any business, right? So I've coached people in pharmaceutical sales, I've coached people in financial sales, I coach people in office automation sales, copying machines,
Yeah.
printers, VoIP, all that stuff. And what you just said is super important. So salespeople with, again, our podcast is talking about selling in the tech age, in the age of AI. So could I not use AI to my advantage? Could I not use these systems to my advantage and set up a cadence to make sure I am touching that client who pays their bills every year, who
Yeah.
never had a claim, right? So can I send a postcard? Can I put them in a cadence that's email, email, phone call? So maybe I'm calling them twice a year. Do I want to be the guy that only calls at renewal time? Aren't you then stepping into the stereotype of salespeople that only show up when there's money to be made? That's not who I want to be. And I think the advice that you and I could give to any salesperson in any profession, again, whether it's pharmaceutical sales or whether it's selling office printers or office furniture, whatever it is, touch that client. Use AI to create the email that you need. It's just, look, I'm going to touch this client. Tell ChatGPT, I'm going to touch this client 3 times a year. These are the products I sell. This is the feeling I want them to have. Chat will write you
That'll
up
do
an
it.
email.
And you're
Now,
exactly right.
right, but
Yeah.
now you have to be the human part of that to schedule when they're going to happen and to infuse those with a quick phone call here and there or a stop by if it's appropriate in your business, whatever it is, but make sure that that human touch, and you will keep your base of clients in the long run because, again, the Pareto rule, only 20% of people are going to do what I just described and what you subscribe to.
I think you're spot on. We 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 entered a program a year ago here, and it was called gratitude, and it's the ongoing thing. How many times do you say thank you? Come on, folks. You take down, you have to show gratitude to that client for the privilege of being able to handle their business. And one of our young the one of our partners uh, came up with the idea of the thankathon.
I love it.
So we set up this, and he ran the whole thing. And you know about this, but for the people that might be listening here or will be listening, we just set a day, a few days actually, between the three locations we have, and assigned out who to call for no other reason than to just say, "Hi, this is Mike Largess from the Romel Agency." We just wanted to call and say, "Thank you. Thank you for trusting us. We appreciate your business. You're important to us.
Wow.
And we're here if you need anything." And people were astonished what you're done. No, no, no. We're just calling to say
And they
thank
say,
you.
okay, so what do you need?
Yeah.
No, just
And we turned it into a contest, and our staff blew the lid off of
wow.
what we expected to make. There were thousands of calls made. Now it only touched a small portion, but man, it's going to rehappen.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know. Now, I think AI can also be incorporated into that. Uh, I mean, you and I know that when you get that happy birthday card from a company that
Oh,
sold
it makes me crazy.
Anderson windows or other kind of something, yeah, that's really personal.
I called my car dealer and I've gotten, I think, three cars from this guy. And I get these email transmissions that don't even look like an email that I would get from you or I would send you. It's like weirdly paginated and boxed off and
That's right.
computer generated. And it says, and I called him up. I'm like, hey, Steve. He's like, yeah. I said, aren't you embarrassed by this? I copied it and sent it back to him. I go, aren't you embarrassed by this? He's like, what are you talking about? The company sends us out automatically. I go, yes, but your name is on it.
Yeah.
Aren't you embarrassed by this? You're a professional salesperson. Why would
This
you
is
allow this piece of garbage to go out? Can't you fix at least how it looks so it looks like it came from you? This is awful.
I know.
So, the automation is great and I want to use it and I do use it. I've got an assistant that I met via Upwork. She lives in Pakistan, then she moved to London. My assistant, we work together seamlessly. I pay her through Payoneer. Like all of these systems are fabulous. I love my CRM. This is great stuff. I truly believe, and the reason we're doing this podcast, I want to be able to give people that are either new in the business, maybe struggling a little bit, maybe trying to find their footing in this new world, or wondering, will they be eliminated? How to set yourself up differently. So, Mike, if you could name, I don't know, top three skills maybe for a salesperson, regardless of the industry, what kinds of things do you think are the most important to be successful in selling?
Knowledge of product.
Okay.
Knowledge of product has to be there because that gains trust and it gains confidence. You don't want to be like the dog chasing a car and finally caught one. Well, what the hell do I do with it now? Yeah, I'm out prospecting for this kind of risk, and they say yes, and you walk in there and you don't even know what questions to ask. Now, there's where AI can do some research for you on that
Sure.
and come up with some things. So knowledge, you got to be a good listener. And Frank, throughout the 50 some years that I've been doing this and brought in people that didn't know how to spell insurance. And my thing was the same. Look, we can teach you the business. What I don't know is how you're going to fall in love with it.
Okay.
So it's up to us to make sure that you have all the knowledge that you need before you're sent out into the field or into whatever specific job. And you got to keep communicating with us to say, how's it going? Are you really liking this or not? So you got to love what you do.
Okay.
You talked before about the panic mode. I got to make
Mhm.
this sale because and how we talked about how one sale leads to more.
Sure.
The difference is the panic mode ain't fun.
No.
That
No,
ain't fun,
anxiety,
man.
man. Anxiety, no.
But making a sale and then gaining a few prospects and having chances and not going to, and all of a sudden you say, wow, that's pretty fun. The best thing that ever happened to me, and you mentioned, and God has called Charlie Bender home. I came in not knowing how to spell insurance. There was no training program. I went down, got my license, and then kind of learned under fire.
Yeah.
But nobody oversaw, and I'm not knocking Charlie. He didn't know any, this was a small little office. But he finally came to me after a year or so and just said, number one, you got a beer, which was normal. And we sat and had a beer. And he goes, I'm just telling you, Mike, I'm just wondering, why do I have you hired? I mean, what are you doing?
Ooh,
We talk about a wake-up call.
that's a moment, huh?
That was a moment. And I got ticked off at him.
Yeah.
And then I got ticked off at myself. And I went, well, bullshit, I'll show you. And I started driving around getting addresses of selling. This would have been personal lines mostly. Started out at that of houses that were not clients, stayed at the office late writing estimated proposals, put them in the mail, followed up with a phone call, and started working. I didn't even know it. In 1971, 72, most business came in the door. So I was fat and lazy and I had no idea what prospecting and working was. And then I found out this is kind of fun. I kind of like this. And you carry it off into the ag and into the commercial world, and
There you go.
all of a sudden it's fun. So you got to like what you're doing. You got to have knowledge for sure, because why is anybody going to buy a product from you if you don't know what the hell you're selling? And it's got to be enjoyable.
Okay. You know what's interesting on a little side note is Charlie was either a wonderful student of human nature or a one-trick pony who applied the same pressure to everyone, and on you it happened to be the right fit.
Well, I was the only guy.
But he could have read you. I'm saying if
Yeah.
if you're a skilled manager like you are, Mike, you'll read a young charge that you have, and you can say, "What the hell I hire you for?" And that could fire somebody up, or that could make somebody quit, depending on the person. So, as a leader, you've got to anticipate what will get this person moving. Are they more security minded? Are they overly confident? I got to knock them back a little bit, like whatever it is. But so I don't know if Charlie only had one tool in his toolbox and he used it on you and it worked, or if Charlie was super perceptive and he knew that if he challenged you, you would come back.
And I have no idea either.
Right. But it's interesting, right? But he guessed right.
Wonderful guy in a small little agency, and I owe him a lot.
So the three things then you're saying, you got to know your stuff so that you feel confidence going out. And you got to find a way to like what you're doing, because if you hate it every day, even if you make a bunch of money, what kind of life?
It's miserable, and yeah.
Yeah. And so what's another thing that you think is important as to be a successful salesperson in any business?
Understand that this doesn't come to you. You got to work hard. So you got to have a work ethic. You got to some degree, be a self-starter. But again, my hope is that a new salesperson is with an organization that sets them up to succeed.
Right. Sure.
With a marketing program, with, hey, here's our corporate values that you have to follow.
Right.
Here's your list of prospects. Here's the monitoring. What's that old saying about people don't do what's expected, they do what's inspected,
Yep, for
is
sure.
very true. So let them know right away. And my saying was a little harsh, people think, but when I hire and fire on the same day. In other words, we're going to put you on, and here's what we're going to do. Here's what we expect out of you. Now, there's going to be a point where we know this is going to work or not. If it isn't working, we're going to part company.
Yeah.
And you let us know if we're not holding up our end, and we're going to watch over you to help you succeed.
That's great.
That's the way it's going to happen. But if it doesn't work out, God's got another plan for you, and it's not here. It's okay. But just so you know, that's the process.
Yeah, you're straight up about it. And for folks listening to the podcast, I want you to notice something. For the 40 minutes or so that Mike and I have been talking, Mike has used my name probably 4 or 5 times. It's not something he thinks about consciously. It's part of his communication style. And I can tell you, I could read you volumes in psychiatry and psychologist written and social science that says use folks' names. Don't overuse them, because then you come across as a false, flattering person, but make it become a part of your natural cadence when you're speaking to people, that every once in a while I say, so Mike, I really appreciate what you're saying to me. Yeah. And I want whoever's listening to notice that, because I do what I do, I'm noticing it, and I'm noticing how natural it is to you. And that's why, Mike, you've been so wildly successful. It's one of the components of a great communicator. And you are, in my experience, you are a great communicator.
Well, thank you, Frank. I had no idea. I
know.
I had no idea.
I know. It's a natural part of what you do.
But people do like to hear themselves, their name. I mean, it's part of communication and part of interacting with each other.
Super important.
And that's something that AI can't do. I think of that old science fiction, "What are you doing, Dave?"
Yeah.
And
that's where we have to distinguish ourselves. I think if you're going to succeed as a professional salesperson today, you've got to do the one thing that AI will never do, and that is be great at interacting with other human beings.
Yes.
On a very personal level.
Yeah. And if you can really focus on listening, obviously you have to tell them what you have.
Yeah.
But in the short term, in our business especially, they know what in general, hey, you sell insurance. So instead of me saying you need this, this, and this, what do you want to see happen? That develops the dialogue.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to have this. You know what? There's just no coverage for that. Or, hey, we can do that. Let's put that in. And, okay, now let's move on. Well, how much does it cost? We'll get to that at a later point, because I want to know what you want this contract to do should something bad happen. Once we find out that, I'm going to search the marketplace and get you the best value for it.
Mike, that's fabulous.
That's what we'll do for you. And I'll review your coverage at some point whenever you want me to.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's a good one, hey man, I'm going to tell you keep it.
Mike, that's probably one of the biggest points that I think people have difficulty with. And it goes back to so many things that we said that we're building on. But, if you work a lot, if you have a great work ethic and a great attitude, okay, those are two primary things. Now you've built a good list of folks that may be interested in your business. It allows you to say, let me look at your coverage. You know what? You're in good shape. I'm wondering why we're even talking here. Tell me, is there something you don't like about your particular situation? Otherwise, I can tell you should stick with it. You're able to do that when you've got enough stuff. And man,
because you got more people why spin your wheels here?
And that person will refer you around the world for having that attitude. It always comes back to visit you, right? When you do something right or good, it will come back to visit you.
And they will refer you not even being your client.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because you did the right thing in the end. So Mike, before we move on, can you come up with a good question for my next guest? I would like you to think of something that you want me to ask my next guest. Then, of course, that means you have to listen to the next podcast to get the answer. So it's my way of making sure I have at least one listener.
I sold one pillow.
So the next person up, I will say, Mike Largess wants to know your opinion about this, or whatever question you think might be appropriate.
Well, tell me about the next person.
So the next person up is a guy who knows a lot about technology, and he's also from the insurance world, but his life is tech. He's not on the sales side.
He's not on the sales side.
Nope.
I would like you to ask him about how is the technology, to what degree has it added workload to his agency and his staff, and juxtapose that over how much it's helped. I know it's necessary, but if he's a real techie guy, and I'm not, by the way, he will. I just think the workload going down to independent agents from the company, forcing more automation steps on us, has been huge.
Yeah, it can be.
I'd like to know his thoughts on that work transfer within carrier to agency in the technology world. Is it real, or is it just a perception on my part?
Okay, I'm writing that down. Carrier to agency. Mike, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being willing to do this with me. I mean, I'm just starting out and I have like a titan in the business, and I know you're going to eschew that and this and that, but Mike, you are seriously so enormously accomplished and so great at what you do and perfect for this, subject that we're talking about, because in my experience, and I am, I do tout myself as a communications expert and speaker.
I agree that.
And you've read that, right? And so it must be true. And I can say that in my experience, you are, in the group of the most charismatic, great listeners, easy to talk to, easy to listen to. I mean, you just have all of that going on that I think salespeople need to be successful, and the work ethic part. So I appreciate so much you doing this with me. And Mike Largess, you are a gentleman and a friend, and just super appreciated for your expertise. Thank you.
That's very kind of you, Frank. And believe me, I looked forward to it. I enjoyed it. You start up, you can go up from here with guests. So that's the one plus that we have.
Right.
But blessings on the podcast going forward. You're the one consultant that I really have a lot of respect for.
I appreciate that, Mike. All right. We'll end it here. Thank you so much.
All righty. You take care.
Ready to take your sales team or event to the next level? Visit franksomma.com to discover how Frank can coach your top performers, deliver a tailored workshop for your team, or captivate your audience with a content-packed keynote at your next event. Frank's best-selling book, B2B is really P2P, is now available on Amazon and Frank's website. Here's a special offer. As a valued listener, mention this podcast when you contact Frank and receive a 10% discount on your first coaching session, keynote, or workshop booking.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Selling in the Age of AI. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all of the topics we discussed, and of course, to connect with our amazing guests. I have to shout out big love to my production team, Neeks, Angelo, Nico of Digital Presence. You guys rock. If you want your digital presence to explode, check these guys out at digitalpresence.team. And until next time, remember, people can't point and click you. Be the difference maker for your prospects and clients.